Welcome to the kickoff event in our Small Business Bootcamp series. This series has been planned by our Rotary Club as a vocational service project for the local business community, as well as our own membership. And I just want to say thank you to our Rotarians for coming out in full force today. This is awesome. I love the energy in the room, and it's great to see everybody, and please keep coming back. So if you're visiting today, I'm Lori Russell. I'm the Vice President of Rotary and also the Chair of our club's membership committee. And I'm very excited to have John Looney and Tony Lynn Hansen here today to kick off our series. So it now gives me great pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Tony Lynn Hansen has worked at Winchester Hospital for 5 years and is the Manager of Communications and Public Affairs. Prior to her time at the hospital, she was a daily newspaper reporter at the Bangor Daily News in Bangor, Maine. She holds a master's degree in communications management from Simmons College and a bachelor's degree from Colby College in Waterville, Maine. So welcome. Thank you, Terry. John Looney, one of our fellow Rotarians, is an award-winning healthcare professional with expertise in corporate communications, public and community relations, and service excellence. He began his career in business-to-business sales in the commercial printing industry, where he learned the importance and value of making positive and lasting first impressions. He currently serves as the Director of Communications and Public Affairs for Winchester Hospital. John offers business professionals simple strategies for marketing your best asset of all, you. So please welcome Tony Lynn and John.
Is just what it says up there. It's about putting your best foot forward. There are two, I think, important points that I want to make here. This environment that we're working in is changing at an amazingly rapid clip. I work in healthcare. I'm seeing huge changes every single day. Mergers, acquisitions, moving of people, moving of services. It's really pretty unbelievable. And I can look around this room and I'm quite sure that a number of you work in industries that are ever changing. So in that environment, I think it is absolutely critical that we always be thinking about how we can put our best foot forward. And the other point that I want to make on this is that one thing that we spend so little time on a regular basis is self-improvement. We don't carve out time to do this sort of thing, so kudos to Rotary for putting this program together. It is so important to find that time. So by way of an agenda, we are going to talk about knowing your audience or your customer. It sounds kind of like we all know what that means, but you'd be amazed at how often this critical step is overlooked. The other thing that we're going to spend some time on, as Laurie indicated, is about seizing that opportunity to market yourself. You are a product. Every setting that you're in, here today, at another networking event, in your organizations, you are a product, and people have their eyes on you. So it's thinking about how you present yourself and how you market yourself, and starting to kind of do that a little bit more proactively, I think is really important at this time. So we're going to spend some time on effective meetings, powerful presentations, and then again, marketing your most valuable asset of all, and that is you. The goal for today is if you walk away with one thing that you might consider doing differently in your daily work, professional world, professional life, that would be a huge success for me. So I'm going to start just a little bit about myself. So many of you know I was born and raised in Burlington, Massachusetts, one of 8 kids. Went to Burlington High School. 2 key takeaways from Burlington High School. I was the recipient of the Rotary Scholarship. Funny how these things go full circle, right? And the other thing about high school for me was the fact that I absolutely hated with a passion any form of public speaking. So it was at that point in my life that I started to realize, oh my God, I got to really get my head around this, right? Went off to college, went to Boston College, graduated in 1985, and quite honestly, I did not leave college with any better sense or comfort level with public speaking. Back then, we didn't do a lot of that, right? Went back to graduate school several years later, and that was around the time that they kind of transformed. There was a lot of that group work, group presentations, so that's when I started to get a lot more involved in this. And again, recognizing that I needed to really work on that skill. So I hired a personal coach. I worked with one for about a year. came to work at Winchester Hospital, amazing organization. I think that you all would attest to that. But they have really an incredible leadership development program at the hospital. So I've taken advantage of many of those programs. And then numerous self-improvement opportunities that I just kind of keep an eye out for. Bottom line here is it's a continuous work in progress. I have not got it nailed. I still get those pre-presentation jitters, right? Like anybody that can say that they never get them, I would argue that they're full of baloney. It's absolutely natural. It's something that we all should be continuing to work on. And I think that every leader in this room, every person in this room, employee, business owner, this is something that we should all be focused on. And there's one person, and this is why I wanted to bring Tony Lynn along. There's one person that, she's a member of my team, Tony Lynn. Laurie did a great job introducing her. She has been very focused on self-improvement since the day that I met her. In fact, in my very first meeting with her, I asked her, I said, what are your aspirations? You know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And she looked across the table. How old were you at that time?
24.
24. She said, I want your job. I thought, kind of caught me off guard, but then I thought, I like this girl. So with that, I am going to pass it to Tony Lynn, and she's going to walk us through a few seconds.
Caught me off guard for that story. Thank you, Tom. Thank you all for allowing me to be here today. I wanted to start my piece with just a very quick story, and I'm going to start it with a date, and that's May 21st. And that's when this little guy or girl is going to come and meet the world. And the reason why that's relevant is because I love my obstetrician. She's located here in Winchester, Derek Criariali, and she understands me. I'm going to be a first-time mom. I am anxious, because first-time moms are anxious, I would think, right? And I'm athletic, and it's very important to me to maintain my lifestyle, maintain my professional lifestyle as I transition to motherhood. And the reason why I mention these points is that she understands me as her audience. Those 4 points really define me for her, and she understands how she can help me meet those needs to keep up my lifestyle while becoming a first mom. First time. So I'm actually going to look to all of you. How well do you all know your audiences? Don't be bashful. How well do you know the people that you are trying to reach out to on a daily basis? Any thoughts? All right, we'll get you guys to liven up a little bit, I'm sure. But this is incredibly important. And I heard that's just getting disappointed. There we go. You may have seen this before. This is actually Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is just to point out the fact that every human being has needs. At the very baseline, the physiological needs of water, food, breathing. The next step is safety. And that safety step is where our professional lives live. In that safety realm is where your employment status is held. And the reason why this is incredibly relevant for us to all remember is that as professionals, we are affecting the personal safety or the personal bubble that your peers are working in. So when you ask a professional to make a very tough choice, you're not just asking something that will affect their professional life. You're also asking them to make a choice that could affect whether they bring home that paycheck that week, because it could result in a promotion or a termination. And that is incredibly important to the fact that every audience has a need, and it's our responsibility as business professionals to help identify those needs and then learn how to address those needs. So from the very beginning, you want to help them understand that you understand the challenge that they are facing and that you're committed to helping them solve that challenge. And then ultimately be prepared to answer the question, why should I care? So as a communications professional and also business professional out in the world, it's incredibly important to remember that your audience is who you're essentially trying to target. It's not just blank faces out in the audience. It's an actual specified person of human beings. And as we were talking about earlier, this is incredibly important to remember and is often overlooked. So once you've identified your audience, there are two key avenues that professionals use to reach out to their peers and their business peers. One is meetings, and another is presentations like John and I are doing here today. So I'm going to ask the audience again, for a little more conversational this time. How do you run your meetings?
Well, I'll jump in, because Jenny can jump in with me, because both Jenny and I have run meetings together. I think you're absolutely correct to focus on the importance of spending time preparing how you're going to run the meeting, making sure that everybody has a goal that they want to come to together, and doing the best you can to eliminate extemporaneous comments. And don't let the meeting get in the weeds, because once you're in the weeds, you're toast.
You can actually have this clicker at this point. Because you're absolutely correct. Effective meetings, John and I sat down, we pulled together what we consider best practices for starting a meeting and making sure that you accomplish everything that you want to accomplish during that meeting. And the number one thing was to spend twice as much time as you normally would on the agenda. And that's essentially to ensure that you meet the clear goals that you set for the meeting. Another thing that's often overlooked is spend twice as much time as you normally would on your attendance list. And it's primarily just to ensure you have the right people at the table and having key decision makers at that table. This is the cardinal rule, right? Start on time, clear professionalism. And then the other thing that we do at Winchester Hospital, which I haven't seen implemented everywhere, but it is quite interesting, is standing meetings. We call them huddles at the hospital. And it's basically if you have one or two key points that you're trying to get across at a meeting, bring everyone together for 5 minutes, stay on your feet, stay standing to basically retain your momentum, and then go back to your job, go back to your work. That way we're not sitting down, we're getting comfortable, becoming complacent. Every good meeting has a leader, as you were mentioning. Because you need someone to keep you on track and keep you on task. But the other point that is incredibly important to remember is that if you're a participant in a meeting, you are just as responsible for the success of that meeting as the leader is, and really own up to that responsibility. So now presentations. If you were me up here today, how would you have prepared for this presentation? How do you normally go about preparing for presentations in your business lives?
Know the consumer, know the person.
Sorry? Go ahead.
Know the person who you're presenting to when what they're looking for.
So know your audience and be prepared to address their needs. Absolutely. What were you saying?
Start with an outline.
Start with an outline. Absolutely.
Practice, practice, practice.
I think you took one of the points from my slide directly. Did you see it earlier? Got my eye.
Give me a handout.
Now the fool's on me, right?
I have one additional one.
Yes.
Don't print out the handouts before you get the PowerPoint.
That is a valid point. I will remember that for next presentation. Thank
Especially with
you.
this group.
One up on me already.
What were you thinking?
That was clearly a bad idea. It was all my idea, too. So writing the script was the first point of advice that we provided. And the reason for that is not verbatim, don't write out your story, but really have an outline prepared so that you make sure you achieve the objective that you set out for that presentation. As you can see, my slides are coming in one at a time. It helps me stay focused. So as you stay focused, every point will come in one at a time, helping everyone stay more organized. You've noticed that I'm using bullet points on this screen. I don't have a ton of text with a lot of paragraphs that you all have to read through. That's incredibly important for focus as well. And then design is often overlooked, but on PowerPoint slides, trying to avoid a ton of images, a lot of graphic, decorative fonts and weird colors really helps the audience focus on you and the message that you're trying to convey rather than the imagery that's on the slide. Finally, and we can see how successful this was or was not, but asking questions of your audience and getting them engaged in conversation is an incredibly important piece of making everyone feel like they're in the room together. I actually feel like I'm sitting in my living room right now because, at this point, I've basically given you my open book presentation and I've done a little ribbing from Larry, so. And practice, practice, practice. I can't tell you how many times I practiced this morning, last night, and of course, far prior to that, because I wouldn't procrastinate by any means. The last point is what John is going to segue into for us, and it's really about the presentation is just that. It's just the presentation. And the overall, and it's just the content, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The overall presentation is what you bring to the table as a person. And so John is going to talk a lot more about how you put your best foot forward as a person.
Great. Thank you, Tony Lynn. Isn't she awesome? So just to recap there, Tony Lynn talked about knowing your audience and how important that is. She gave you some really great tips for running effective meetings and some tips for powerful presentations. Every single one of those things that she just walked you through, you've heard it all before at one point or another in your career. But again, the point here is to just be reminded of these things because it's so easy to shift away from them and kind of go into some of those bad habits if you're not keeping this stuff front and center. So now, and I'm not going to ask you more questions because we're not getting a lot of answers. So now we're going to talk about your most valuable asset of all, and that is you. So again, these are just meetings that we're talking about, PowerPoint presentations that we're talking about. There's one consistent person in all of those, and that is you. So we're going to talk about kind of what you bring to the table and how you present yourself in really any setting. It's a meeting, it's here, it's at home, whatever it is, there's a way that you present and there's a product that you're representing. So I'm going to ask you, how do you start a meeting or a presentation? Right there.
Well, this is related to the first question that she asked, and I'm sitting here feeling sad that we didn't give her any questions.
Don't worry about it.
And wondering why we didn't, and trying to think what maybe I could have answered if I had a few more seconds. So I'd like to give my answer now.
The floor is yours.
I realize it's an interruption of the flow in a way. But the question was about the audience. Why do you need to know your audience? And how do you learn your audience? And it reminds me, I grew up in the cattle raising area of Illinois. My relatives were all farmers. And there's a very strong Grange. So you may not know that Grange is a very strong association of independent farmers. It's nationwide. And they have an active speaker schedule trying to help their members to stay up to date in the latest output from the agricultural research stations. And one of the professors at the university was invited to speak to this Grange unit, and he realized that probably no one in the room but him had, for example, a college degree. And he had a BS and PhD. So he was trying to figure out how to kind of break the ice and get going with this audience. So he was introduced, and the introducer was very eloquent about his grand career in academia. And when he got up, this is what he said. He said, well, he says, you're all cattlemen here. And he said, you probably noticed the letters after my name. You know what the BS is for. He said, you may not have known that the MS stands for more of the same. And furthermore, that the PhD means piled higher and deeper. So he now had his audience.
Thank you, Dick. You're actually kind of teeing up the next piece. So I was curious to know if anybody was going to say that they start a presentation or a meeting with a story. And as I look around this room, you guys do this all the time. You just did it. You just told us a story. You know who does it all the time too is Jack Keane. When he stands up to speak, he opens with a story. And there's a lot of reasons why we do that. Why does it make sense to start with a story? And it doesn't have to be a long one. It can be a 20-second story. Why does it make sense to do that? What do we accomplish when we start with a story? Connect. Yep.
We're a nation of storytellers.
Nation of storytellers.
Makes people react.
Helps people relax, absolutely. You're all spot on, right? So it's a great way to begin. You can set the tone. You can launch kind of a fun presentation or a more serious one with the story that you tell. It's a little bit different from others. Not everybody does it. Not everybody's comfortable doing it. But I encourage you to start thinking about that because it is a way to kind of set yourself apart. Lets them get to know you, builds credibility and trust. And what I love about this one is it is an opportunity to set the stage for what you're about to talk about. So you remember my story at the beginning? Talked a little bit about me, kind of my progression and the fact that I see public speaking and presenting as kind of a lifelong thing that I'm going to be working on. The reason I shared that story was to kind of set the stage for what we're about to talk about today, what we're about to talk about at that point. So storytelling can be hugely, hugely powerful. Different types of stories. Mine was in the quest bucket, kind of striving to achieve. A lot of people will start presentations with a story about a sports team. The Bruins or the Patriots, whatever. If it's what you're there to communicate about is achieving something, oftentimes sports stories work really well. There's several other types of stories there. I want to just run this clip. It's about a 4-minute clip, and I think Jesse Jackson is he's a really great storyteller. I forget the year, but this was at one of the Democratic National Conventions, and he's sharing a story to tee up basically the messaging at that convention.
As we move to the next dimension, I share this with you, Mr. Chairman, to our next president and vice president. Not very long ago, I was in South Carolina speaking to a small school. I saw a strange and unusual sight. I saw a 6'8" athlete walking across the campus, holding the hand of a 3-foot dwarf. That was this contrast. It looked to be romantic. She was looking up and he was looking down. They got to one of the sidewalks, crossed, and she jumped up on the bench and they embraced and kissed. And he gave her books. She was skipping down the sidewalk. I tried to act normal, but Andy, it looked funny to me. I said, Mr. President, what am I looking at? He said, well, I thought you would have asked to see that is his sister. Matter of fact, it is his twin sister. And by some frequent genetics, he came out the giant. She came out dwarf. He's a top athlete in the state. We couldn't afford to get it. All the big schools off their scholarships. The pros off their contract. But he said, I can only go to the college so my sister can get a scholarship. The NCAA said, we can't give 2 scholarships. We have bright lights. We have pro possibilities. He said, but if my sister can't go, I can't go. Someone that boy learned something about ethics, about real caring, about real character. If my sister can't go, I can't go. All of us are not born giants with silver spoons in our mouths and gold slippers on our feet. Some of us are born short of hope, short of opportunity, abandoned, neglected, homeless, motherless, teeth crooked, eyes tangled, dreams busted, but somebody has to measure their giantness, not by reaching up, but by reaching back and reaching out and living and caring and sharing. Give it a try. If we pursue that ethic, that love ethic, that character, we will win and deserve to win.
So anybody want to have thoughts about that story?
Went on too long.
Went on too long.
One thing I noticed that shows the brilliance of this man. You notice that he selected that particular piece because there was a subliminal message in the background. You saw someone was holding a healthcare sign. So this is the way he.
So I'll share why I like that story. And Peter's right. I mean, in different settings, you know, you're gonna tell stories of
This is
different.
a convention,
of
they probably have
different
all the
lengths.
time in the world. but
Exactly, they
instead
have
of
more
walking
time.
After,
But what I really love about that story is that it's so beautifully kind of teed up, kind of the mission at that point of the Democratic Party. And it was through a story that he had observed that I thought that the connection back to the mission of the group at that time was just phenomenal. So storytelling can make a difference. So how do you present yourself when you walk into a room? I'm not going to ask this group this question because we're running out of time. Body language. What do we see here? Right? Anybody? Just throw out a few words. What do you see when you look at her? What's the difference? Huge difference, right? But believe me, when you walk around your organizations, walk around different meetings, different events and so forth, you do see people walking in that room like the woman on the left. The woman on the right, very different, right? What do we see here? This is the president of an organization. In the backdrop here, it says, lighting the future. Well, what's the message he's sending with his body language? Do you think he's lighting the future for the employees in that audience?
He looks worried.
He looks worried, absolutely, right? He's fiddling with that cap on that water bottle. He definitely looks uncertain, right? A little bit different here, right? What's the message Bill is sending, right? No political undertones here, trust me. I've got a Republican in here. No, what's the message he's sending? Come with me, right? Work with me, right? Be a part of this. So body language is incredibly important. I think that you should, you know, it's kind of the things that your mother taught you when you were little. The posture, hands, arms, body open. I noticed Grant, when he gave his update on the golf, you had the arms out here, right? Come on, join the golf tournament committee. You know, they weren't like this, they were like this. Physically engaging. Positive facial expression. Smile, head tilt, eyes wide, eyebrows up, nodding. Be yourself, be authentic. And embrace the nerves and channel them, choose your emotions. So this kind of goes back to the fact that I think everybody prior to a presentation gets a little bit of that jitter, right? That little, you know, the stomach's doing that thing, right? So the trick, I think, is to take that energy, take that emotion, and channel it into the emotion that you want to convey. So if you want to convey enthusiasm, put it there. If you want to convey seriousness, put it there. You can take that emotion and channel it. A couple more quick clips for you. So this is President Coolidge, I believe was a Republican, correct?
Can I ask a question on body language?
Yes.
How much of it is conscious? How much can you be intentional about changing your body language?
I think that's a great question. I think a lot of it is just old bad habits. That's why practice is so important. And oftentimes, if you're preparing for a presentation, do it in front of a mirror. Look at the way that you're using your arms. Look at what you're doing with them. Because a lot of times you start doing this and you fold it. We don't even realize you're doing that. Yes? Or videotape yourself. I have been videotaped probably more than anybody I know. And it's horrifying to watch it, but it is amazing how much you learn when you watch it. Ready, T?
Country needs every ounce of its energy to restore itself. The costs of government are all assessed upon the people. This means that the farmer is doomed to provide a certain amount of money out of the sale of his produce, no matter how low the price to pay in taxes. The manufacturer.
So thoughts on President Coolidge? What was he doing with his emotion?
Terrible. He was getting rejected. He wasn't looking at his audience. He was reading from the script. So his reputation that we know of him is demonstrated by that.
Okay, so now we're going to shift, yes,
I'd suggest Ronald Reagan as your next Republican.
there you go. This really wasn't intended to be. So now I'm going to show you one more clip. Kind of the flip side of emotion.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a very warm reception. It was 144 years ago that members of the Democratic Party first met in convention to select a presidential candidate. Since that time, Democrats have continued to convene once every 4 years and draft a party platform and nominate a presidential candidate. And our meeting this week is a continuation of that tradition. But there is something different about tonight. There is something special about tonight. What is different? What is special? I, Barbara Jordan, am a keynote speaker.
It's a little bit different, right? She did a nice job. Yeah. Isn't that great? Very engaging. She's just kind of pulling you right in. She made great eye contact. And what she did with her voice, now she kind of climaxed right up to that point where she nailed that final statement. So it's just an example of how you can use emotion to really engage your audience.
Sorry.
Someone's messing with my slides. I don't know what this is. Okay, so this is our final slide. So that, kind of summarize, run through what we see as key takeaways for you. Number one, you got to know your audience in any setting. Even when you're not presenting or in a meeting, if you're just at a networking event, you want to know who else is in that room. And again, we all know this, but do we really do our research to make sure that we can nail it when we're there? Seizing the opportunity, every opportunity to position yourself positively, running effective meetings, putting together effective PowerPoint presentations, and then really thinking about the message that you send yourself as a product. Think about marketing yourself. What can I do differently? How can I market myself in a better way? So then just a couple of closing points. Maybe think about doing one thing different next time. I'm hoping that there's something in here, if there's one thing that you could use moving forward. Again, we would be thrilled by that. And then I think it's the, as professionals in the business world, it's that ongoing commitment to improvement, seeking out those opportunities to develop your skills. You know better than anybody the areas of opportunity for you. So it's really about kind of finding those places that we can leverage to improve ourselves. Thank you.